In 2011, the U.S. Conference of Mayors and the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, both passed overwhelming resolutions calling the war on drugs a failure and calling for decriminalization of drugs and experimentation with various other models of dealing with illicit drugs, as other countries have done. In a Gallup poll, 50% of Americans said that marijuana ought to be legal. More recently, at the Baker Institute, conservative Republican Congressman Michael McCall, talking about violence on the southwest border, responded to a question about drug legalization and said, this ought to be a serious discussion. We ought to talk about the possible regulation and taxation of drugs. Well, we're going to be having that discussion at the Baker Institute on March 8 and 9th in a conference called The War on Drugs Has Failed. Is Legalization the Answer? It will begin with a keynote address on Thursday evening, March the 8th, with an address by popular travel writer, television and radio host Rick Steves, who will talk about how his extensive travels in Europe have opened his eyes to ways of dealing with drugs, particularly marijuana, that are more effective and do far less harm than our punitive policies of prohibition in this country. The question we need to keep asking is why we would not want to have the control, distribution, and sale of now illicit drugs in the hands of responsible government authorities, instead of what we now do, leaving them in the hands of criminals who have no incentive whatever to distribute, sell, deal with them in any way in a responsible manner.